Well, to speak to Beth's comment about a certain rigidity among yoga practitioners, and also earlier in the morning we were talking about how someone mentioned how this person actually approaches their practice with joy and happiness and not just gravitas. I can't resist this, forgive me if you've heard this 100 times. What did the yogi say to the hot dog seller? Make me one with everything. I wanted to say that my understanding of the conference was what is next for yoga, what is needed in yoga now from our perspective. And this wasn't particularly said, although I know everyone acknowledges it, is let us not underestimate the students, the clients, what people are coming for. Nayaswami Dharmaraj directed me to this article in the New York Times, putting meditation back on the mat. And what it shared was a number of studios saying our demand for meditation classes is increasing. Some are having to double the number of meditation classes they're offering. I mentioned that partly because meditation in the morning was a big theme. Let's make sure meditation is a part of yoga. And again, it's so wonderful that we have the luxury of this conference even to say, because yoga is so popular, it has created such a large demand of people who are familiar with it that now we can go deeper into things that, yes, we come perhaps first because we have physical pain or because we want stress reduction, but it changes your life. Someone said to me at lunch, Uni said, sometimes people don't want to pursue the yamas and niyamas because, well, those are inconvenient. I would rather just like to practice asana and meditation, but I don't want to change my life. And I grant you that, but we also shared the thought that, but doing the asanas and meditation will start to bring about the niyamas naturally. As Vivekananda has been quoted so many times today, and one thing he also said is one of the first things that happens to the meditator is that the voice becomes sweet. Because the heart opens, because we relax, and because we live more from who we are. I can't help, I would be remiss in not sharing a quote from the article, that yoga is the gateway that opens the door for people to try modalities that they normally wouldn't. And that quote was from Beth Shaw.
Actually, I'll be going to New York to implement yoga through New York Sports Club. I'll be doing that with them on Wednesday to start that process. Implement meditation through New York Sports Club. Yeah.
Wonderful.
The need is in the fitness industry too, and we're seeing that ripple effect, which will get it out there in a big way.
And I think that's what I also wanted to say was what I'm seeing that is working. And the first thing I'm seeing that's working is communication. This conference, how respectful everyone was of each other in all the panels that we had together. There was a time in yoga, and Gyandev spoke to it and others did too, the early days was just about why my way is the best way. And your way is fine for you, but really my way is better. And I didn't hear that from anyone. So either they were very tactful or they were very sincere, that it is important. Forgive me, I forget who mentioned it now, but at the top of the mountain, all the paths are the same. All the paths unite at the top of the mountain. Arun, thank you, Arun. We can get so much further if we work together, and we are working together. And I love that about this because, competitive yoga, it just seems crazy. It seems like a contradiction in terms. Yoga, after all, means union. Another thing that I can't resist saying, again a Vivekananda quote, is that someone said to him, what can we do to change this world? And he said, change yourself. And I think that lies at the key of everything that we're talking about, is what can we do to become more magnetic ourselves, more sharing of truth. After all, the greatest gift a teacher gives a student is not knowledge, but that magnetism, that transference of magnetism. And all we talk about is, I had this teacher who was really enthusiastic about trigonometry, and somehow I love trigonometry, even though, after all, it's just triangles and sine and cosine. I like Gyandev, I have a math background, so forgive me for the abstract analogy there. But It is enthusiasm that fires us, and I have been fired today by everyone's enthusiasm and passion and sincerity that I had no idea about. I thought, gosh, I have to speak at this conference. I'm going to suggest that we put more emphasis on meditation, on Yoga Sutras, on conscious business practices, on the Bhagavad Gita, on living the teaching, and like out of the first 5 minutes, that was, out of the starting gate, and I didn't know that, and so I'm thrilled. There's so much further we can go now. And the last thing I'd like to, as one practical point, Phil raised the question in the second session of, on the one hand, there is a lot of analogy with the yoga industry and the fitness industry, also the medical field, in terms of saying the standardization and the curriculum needing to be more intense, and also regulation. And yet we are also talking about, with yoga, a philosophy, a way of life, where we wouldn't speak of the higher aspects of yoga in terms of certification, but in terms of ordination. And I want to repeat his question so it doesn't get lost, and also because Arvind charged us on this last panel with addressing that question, that perhaps what we need to do when you say regulate yoga, some people say, but how can you regulate God? How can you regulate, what flows from my heart? And I don't think that's what we're actually saying. And at the same time, people are wisely saying, I don't want a class action lawsuit to come against a yoga studio for hurting somebody because the teacher wasn't trained. That's vital. So he said, can we not separate or clarify what aspects of yoga we can regulate? He said, for example, yoga therapy or yoga fitness, or he said even hatha yoga, I will go as far as to say. Can we say what it requires to do that? And therefore take some of the charge out of, well, you can't ever regulate anything, because we know regulation is inevitable. It's helpful to have Beth say from 30 years into the future, it's coming. And at the same time, we can also say, but these are the parts which are beyond regulation. These are the parts which are so personal, and I would wager to say, the parts that are most meaningful to all of us here. And so that could be one charge of Yoga Next conference, is perhaps to create or work together with some organization or team to say these are what we consider to be what can be regulated, and this is what we will leave out.